Hi Sarah, this is my communication plan on how to communicate effectively as a rookie teacher. Okay, the scenario I chose for this project is a refugee/immigrant student is being disrespectful towards a female teacher. Since my plan is to go into elementary school teaching, I based this around that because that's what I'll have to be working through in the future. The scenario I made is I have a 7-year-old immigrant boy named Omar, who is speaking out in my class. The rest of Omar's teachers are male, and I'm the only female teacher he has, and he's been doing this repeatedly now. So because it's been happening so often and repeatedly, we've decided that we have to talk to Omar, his parents, and his other teachers so that we can deal with the situation together. Knowing his background, we know that he hasn't had female teachers before, so we want to be able to talk to him about this in an effective manner that he will understand. To begin, we're going to talk to the student, and we're going to talk to Omar about empathy. He's a little bit too young to understand his influences on perception. He's just starting to understand that he can perceive other people other than himself, as we know that 7 is around the age that children start perceiving other people. So we want to talk to him about how what he said made you feel so that he can be aware that his words do have meaning and he can have more empathy towards that. When talking to Omar about empathy, we're going to want to talk to him about deepening his empathy because he probably doesn't really understand the whole concept of empathy, so this is a good introduction for him. Being an empathetic person, you have to be other-oriented, so we can introduce that to Omar by letting him know that adults' feelings can be hurt as well. We know that his speaking out in class has been affecting me as a teacher and our classes, and now that it's been happening for so long, we've decided to talk about it, and I can talk to him about how this hurt my feelings. As we know, Omar isn't from Canada, so we have to approach this in a very, very, very light manner, because maybe he just doesn't understand this, and likely he just doesn't understand this concept yet, which is totally okay. I would love and am honored to teach Omar about empathy. Now, helping Omar open his mind to new experiences is another great way to build empathy. With this, it can just be small things like letting him read a new book or getting him to read a new book that's by a Canadian author. Maybe he's not used to that. Now, since he's from somewhere else, we are going to have to keep our mind open that his reading level is not going to be at what the other students are. So this book is likely a picture book and he can pick it out himself. But again, maybe he just doesn't really like reading. And this is a good way that we can open his mind to new experiences and accepting them. And the final one, the one that I honestly think is the most effective for Omar and his age, is helping Omar deepen his imagination. So being an open-minded person, it is really crucial that you can imagine what someone else is going through. Since Omar is young, he definitely can't do that yet. He doesn't have that skill. So with this, it can be small little things like introducing him to a new game. I liked the idea of introducing him to a Canadian game like lacrosse so that he can be immersed into the culture as well as learning new things and deepening his imagination with things like that so he can become more of an empathetic person. Our next step in this situation is going to be talking to Omar's parents, and we're going to talk to Omar's parents about Omar's influences on perception. Since he is too young to understand this, educating his parents so that they can eventually educate him is the best way that we can go about this. So, this is a great opportunity to give his parents tools that they can use now or in the future to help Omar understand perception at this young age. But we're also keeping in mind that his parents, as well, obviously, are immigrants, so they might not be used to these concepts as well. Introducing them can help them understand and eventually introduce Omar in a proper way. So, first off, I was going to say firstfully, wow, cultural influences. So, from previous conversations with Omar's parents, I know that he's not used to seeing a woman in a working role. He's used to the stay-at-home mom, and not seeing that is definitely unnatural to him. So, we're going to have to educate his parents about achievement and nurturing in Canada and how it differs from their home country. Because here we know that a woman's worth is not exclusively based on if she is a stay-at-home mom. It is very encouraged that men and women do what is right for them. And as we know, in this class, we're all made to be teachers, which is awesome. So, next is standpoint theory and self-awareness. We're going to want to educate Omar's parents about how a person's position in their world shapes their view of society and others, and how that is directly being shown in Omar now. So, with this conversation, we can help Omar's parents understand that because he's not from Canada, that's why he's perceiving me as his teacher as unnatural. And now that's something that he's going to have to relearn and understand that women working is totally okay and it's natural here rather than what he's not used to. So, introducing them to that concept so that they can understand and eventually educate their son on this is the best way I think we can go about this whole situation. Finally, I'm going to be talking to Omar's other teachers, and we're going to be discussing win-win problem solving and how we can achieve that with Omar. In this situation, collaborating with his teachers can ensure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to making sure that Omar doesn't continue down a path of sexist behavior. Because as we know, now it is not sexist. He is a little boy who is coming from a different culture where this is all very new to him. So we're going to have to try and help him see eye to eye with us on this situation. So we're going to be using win-win problem solving because this issue is too important to use any other problem solving method. When it comes to Omar and this issue, if he continues with disrespecting his female teachers, then it can eventually turn to outright and blatant sexism, unfortunately. So, since he's still young, since his brain is still a little sponge and we can still educate him and help him with this is a great time where we can collaborate as a team and try and encourage Omar to see eye to eye with us that women can definitely work and they can definitely be his teachers. Now, Omar's teachers and I, we both have the time and we're willing to put the time in to encourage Omar to have more respect for his female teachers. As we know, this is not something that is purposeful. He's not meaning to be disrespectful, so we're definitely willing to put the time in and effort in to encourage Omar to respect women. We can also talk about point of view when it comes to win-win problem solving when talking to his teachers. So we both have the same point of view on this, where we want Omar to have the same point of view as us, pretty much. We want Omar to be able to see that women can work and can have these roles and are able to teach him. So since he doesn't understand that, as teachers, we're going to merge insights and work as a team to make sure that Omar can build this understanding as a little boy. Now that we've discussed what we're going to talk to Omar about, Omar's parents and Omar's other teachers, we can finally get into the socio-cultural factors. So, first we want to make sure that we're educated properly on the topics that we're discussing with our students. So, since they're young, especially since I'm going into elementary school, I want to make sure that when I'm talking to my students in the future about issues like this or related to something similar, that I'm not feeding them incorrect information so that they also don't. It's like not a terrible game of telephone, right? Like we don't want that. So it's important that you come in educated, making sure that you're giving your education and talking about it in a proper way. And secondly is using and utilizing anti-bias education. So you don't want to have the mindset that the student is treating you poorly because of you or because of them. It's the student that has a different background and they have a different perspective, therefore they're just not fully understanding of this. It's important that we're coming in with an open mind and understanding that this isn't something that they're fully used to, so we're going to have to slowly introduce this to them so that it's not too harsh, it's not too much, yeah. And then third, we don't want to expect a perfect outcome. All children are different and all people react differently. So in this situation, this is what I chose to do. This might not work in every situation and likely won't work in every situation. So it's important that trial and error is a part of the process, that we're all willing to learn together and grow together. So now that we've discussed everything, we can finally wrap things up. So in a nutshell, when working with an immigrant or a refugee student, it is really important to keep in mind that everything around them and their parents is new, and they're learning new concepts all around. So it's not just their reading, their math that they're having to learn, it's social skills, it's a bunch of things like that. So slip-ups and mistakes will happen when they're in this learning process from the student and from the parent. So being very lenient with them during this process and understanding that they're not doing this to be disrespectful, they're doing this out of being uneducated and unaware of how things go in Canada. Another thing I wanted to note is that it is likely that your student is going to have different values and standards than what is in place in Canada. And if that's the case, it's definitely going to be a little trickier to navigate the situation. The situation I made is an easier situation, so if that were the case, it would take much more conversation. I would definitely have to bring in the principal, and it would be a much deeper conversation than just empathy with Omar. But that is my presentation. Thank you very much, Sarah, and thanks for an amazing term. Bye-bye.